The Brooklyn Bridge, a story of vision, struggle, and triumph. On May 24, 1883, the streets of New York erupted with excitement. Cannons roared, church bells rang, and bands played, as thousands of people poured into the city. The occasion was the opening of the Brooklyn Bridge, a structure so daring and magnificent that newspapers called it the eighth wonder of the world. The Brooklyn Bridge is more than just a way to cross the East River. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and human determination. To understand its history is to understand the willpower of 19th century America, dreaming big, enduring tragedy, and pushing through to triumph. A river that divided two cities. In the mid-1800s, New York City and Brooklyn were separate, independent cities. Between them flowed the East River, a wide and sometimes violent body of water. Ferries carried passengers across, but the trip could be risky. Ice in winter, storms in spring, and strong tides all made travel dangerous. Merchants, workers, and families wanted a safe, permanent link between the two cities. But the river was nearly 1,600 feet wide at its narrowest point. Building a bridge across it seemed impossible to many. John Roebling's daring vision. One man, however, believed it could be done. John Augustus Roebling, a German-born engineer. Roebling was already known for designing suspension bridges, which used cables to hold up the roadway. But the East River would demand something far larger than anything he had attempted before. Roebling's plan was bold. Two enormous towers, each more than 270 feet tall, would rise from the river, built of granite and limestone. From them, 4 giant steel cables would stretch across the water, supporting a wide roadway that could carry carriages, wagons, trains, and pedestrians. It was a breathtaking vision. Critics said it was madness. Roebling insisted it could be done. Tragedy at the start. Before construction could even begin, disaster struck. In 1869, while surveying the site, John Roebling's foot was crushed in an accident. Infection set in, and he died just days later. The project seemed doomed. But his son, Washington Roebling, also an engineer, stepped forward to carry on his father's dream. The hidden battle underwater. To build the towers, workers had to dig down into the riverbed. They used huge wooden chambers called caissons, sunk underwater and filled with compressed air. Inside these dark boxes, men shoveled mud and laid stone blocks while breathing. Pressurized air supplied by pumps above. The work was dangerous. Many suffered from what they called the bends, now known as decompression sickness. When workers left the pressurized caissons too quickly, nitrogen bubbles formed in their blood. The results were terrifying. Joint pain, dizziness, paralysis, or even death. Washington Roebling himself fell victim after spending too much time in the caissons. He became partially paralyzed, his health permanently damaged. A woman who carried the dream. Though confined to his home, Washington refused to give up. From a window in Brooklyn Heights, he watched the progress through a telescope and dictated detailed instructions. At his side was his wife, Emily Roebling. She became his voice and his hands. At first, she simply carried his notes to the workers. But over time, Emily studied engineering herself, learning about cable stress calculations, material strength, and construction design. She became so skilled that many considered her the true on-site chief engineer. Emily not only supervised workers, but also negotiated with politicians, handled technical reports, and guided the final stages of construction. On opening day in 1883, she was honored as the first person to officially cross the bridge. Building the giant. Year after year, the bridge grew. The 2 towers rose like stone cathedrals, anchored deep into the earth. Workers spun the giant steel cables by hand, walking back and forth across the river thousands of times, stringing wire after wire until each cable contained over 5,000 individual strands. The cables were anchored on land in massive stone structures, then stretched taut over the towers. From them, the suspended roadway was gradually hung piece by piece, until at last the two cities were joined. The entire project took 14 years and an astonishing $15.5 million. A fortune at the time. The human cost was high as well. Historians estimate that between 20 and 30 workers died during construction, some from falls, others from caisson disease, and still others from accidents on the job. A city united. On May 24, 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened to the public. President Chester A. Arthur and New York Governor Grover Cleveland led the ceremony. That day, more than 150,000 people crossed the span, gazing in awe at the skyline and the busy river below. The bridge stood as the longest suspension bridge in the world, 1,595 feet across the East River, and its towers were the tallest structures in the United States. It was also the first suspension bridge to use steel for its cables, a material that would soon reshape modern engineering. Fear, tragedy, and trust. But not everyone trusted the new bridge. Just 6 days after the opening, on May 30th, 1883, a rumor swept through the crowd on the bridge that it was collapsing. Panic erupted, and in the stampede that followed, 12 people were crushed to death. To restore public confidence, the famous circus showman P.T. Barnum was commissioned to demonstrate the bridge's strength. On May 17, 1884, he led a parade of 21 elephants and 17 camels across the bridge. The most famous elephant, Jumbo, led the procession. This highly publicized stunt was a massive success, not only dispelling fears about the bridge's structural integrity, but also serving as a brilliant piece of advertising for Barnum's circus. More than a roadway. The Brooklyn Bridge was originally called the New York and Brooklyn Bridge. It was not until 1915 that the name was officially changed to simply the Brooklyn Bridge. In its early years, the bridge carried more than just carriages and pedestrians. It had elevated railway tracks in the center, where cable cars and trains ran between the two cities, making it a true transportation hub. Over time, as automobiles became dominant, the tracks were removed and replaced with lanes for vehicles. The legacy of the Roeblings. The story of the Brooklyn Bridge is not only about stone and steel, but also about the people behind it. John Roebling dreamed it. Washington Roebling engineered it, even while confined by illness. And Emily Roebling, through intelligence and determination, became one of the most remarkable women in engineering history. Their work, along with the sacrifice of hundreds of anonymous laborers, many of them immigrants, turned an impossible idea into reality. The bridge today. More than 140 years later, the Brooklyn Bridge still stands, a proud landmark of New York City. Every day, thousands of cars, bicycles, and pedestrians cross it. Tourists flock to its wooden walkway for breathtaking views of Manhattan's skyline. The bridge is not just a piece of infrastructure, it is a living monument. It tells us that even the greatest challenges can be met, with vision, sacrifice, and perseverance. Conclusion. The Brooklyn Bridge began as a dream, endured tragedy and doubt, and emerged as one of the most iconic structures in the world. Its cost was measured not only in millions of dollars, but also in lives lost and years of struggle. Yet it remains a symbol of courage, resilience, and human spirit. When we look at the bridge today, rising with grace across the East River, we see more than stone towers and steel cables. We see the determination of a father, the suffering of a son, the brilliance of a wife, and the labor of countless workers who believed in building something greater than themselves. The Brooklyn Bridge is not just a crossing, it is a story and a reminder that dreams can span even the widest rivers.
It's time to study new words. 1. Granite. Definition: a very hard type of rock. Often used in buildings and monuments because it is strong and long-lasting. Example: the Brooklyn Bridge towers were built from granite, which gave them great strength. 2. Limestone. Definition: a light-colored stone, made from the remains of ancient sea creatures, often used in construction. Example: Many old cathedrals in Europe are made of limestone because it is easy to cut into blocks. 3. Pedestrian. Definition: a person who is walking, especially along a street or pathway. Example: the Brooklyn Bridge has a special walkway for pedestrians who want to cross on foot. 4. Breathtaking. Definition: something so beautiful, surprising, or impressive that it makes you feel amazed. Example: the view of Manhattan from the top of the bridge is truly breathtaking. 5. Set in. Definition: to begin and take hold, especially when something negative starts and continues. Example: after his injury, infection quickly set in, and John Roebling became very ill. 6. Caisson. Definition: a large, airtight chamber used underwater, so workers can dig or build safely below the surface. Example: the workers built the bridge towers by working inside caisson on the riverbed. 7. The bends. Definition: a painful and sometimes deadly sickness caused when divers or workers rise too quickly from high-pressure environments, creating bubbles in their blood. Example: many workers in the caissons suffered from the bends when they came up too fast. 8. Taut. Definition: pulled tight, stretched firmly with no slack or looseness. Example: the steel cables of the bridge were pulled taut to hold the heavy roadway. 9. Roadway. Definition: the part of a bridge or street where vehicles travel. Example: the roadway of the Brooklyn Bridge was designed to carry carriages, trains, and later automobiles. 10. Stampede. Definition: a sudden rush of a large group of people or animals, often caused by fear. Example: a tragic stampede occurred on the bridge when people thought it was collapsing. 11. Dispelling. Definition: the act of making doubts, fears, or false ideas disappear, removing something that is troubling or untrue. Example: the sight of elephants walking across the Brooklyn Bridge went a long way in dispelling people's fears that it might collapse. 12. Resilience. Definition: the ability to recover quickly from difficulties or hardships. Inner strength. Example: the story of Emily Roebling shows resilience as she continued the work despite her husband's illness.
Comprehension questions. 1. When was the Brooklyn Bridge officially opened to the public? Answer: the Brooklyn Bridge opened on May 24, 1883. 2. What problem did the Brooklyn Bridge solve for New Yorkers and Brooklynites in the 1800s? Answer: it provided a safe and permanent crossing over the East River, which had been dangerous and unreliable with ferries. 3. Who was the original designer of the Brooklyn Bridge? Answer: the bridge was originally designed by John Augustus Roebling, a German-born engineer. 4. What happened to John Roebling before construction of the bridge began? Answer: he was injured in an accident, developed an infection, and died in 1869. 5. Who took over the project after John Roebling's death? Answer: his son, Washington Roebling, became chief engineer. 6. What were caissons and why were they dangerous? Answer: caissons were large, underwater chambers filled with compressed air used to dig into the riverbed. They were dangerous because they caused the bends decompression sickness. 7. What is the bends and why did it occur? Answer: the bends is decompression sickness. It happened when workers left caissons too quickly, causing nitrogen bubbles to form in the blood, leading to pain, paralysis, or death. 8. How did Washington Roebling's illness affect his role in the project? Answer: he became partially paralyzed and could not visit the site. He directed the work from his home, using a telescope, relying heavily on his wife Emily. 9. What important role did Emily Warren Roebling play in the bridge's construction? Answer: she studied engineering, supervised construction, carried instructions, negotiated with officials, and became known as the key figure who saw the project through completion. 10. Approximately how much money did the bridge cost, and how many workers died during construction? Answer: the bridge cost about $15.5 million and an estimated 20-30 workers died. 11. What was the total length of the Brooklyn Bridge when it was completed? Answer: it stretched 1,595 feet across the East River. 12. What tragic event happened just 6 days after the bridge opened? Answer: a false rumor of collapse caused a stampede on the bridge, killing 12 people. 13. Who helped restore public confidence in the bridge's safety, and how? Answer: Showman P.T. Barnum marched 21 elephants and 17 camels across the bridge to prove its strength. 14. What was the bridge's original name? And when was it officially renamed the Brooklyn Bridge? Answer: it was originally the New York and Brooklyn Bridge. It was officially renamed the Brooklyn Bridge in 1915. 15. Besides carriages and pedestrians, what other transportation did the bridge carry in its early years? Answer: the bridge carried elevated railway tracks and cable cars between Manhattan and Brooklyn.